Welcome, Wapplers, to our November 4th Wappler Meetup. We're doing Wappler Meetups on the first Friday of every month at 4 o'clock Netherlands time. Keep an eye on the coffee lounge and announcements for upcoming events. If there are any Wapplers out there who have a special skill or talent within Wappler or something that they'd like to share with the community, please reach out to Mark 1 on the forum. Today, our meetup is being hosted by Mr. Brian English, the UK, and he's got a very interesting demonstration to show us. So, Brian, please take it away.
Thank you, Mark. I'm not sure about the interesting bit, but I'll do my best. Okay, so I know I'll put a caveat on this right from the start. I know we now have multi-forms, multi-row forms built into Wappler, but sometimes they don't sort of quite fit what I want to do in terms of the display in particular of a form or a particular page. I'm feeling that some of the admin pages, because most of the work that I do are content management systems, therefore there's the administrative consoles, and they get really button cluttered, and I wanted to look for a way to be able to reduce the amount of buttons that we will typically see on a screen. So I looked at Bootstrap tables, and I thought, how could we sort of make that concept editable without having to put lots of buttons onto the screen? So if I just we look at what I've called old version here, this is what we've been doing for a long time in Wappler. We have a Bootstrap table. We insert a couple of buttons. We stick a couple of actions onto those buttons, click actions. So we'll pop up an edit screen or we'll pop up a delete screen. And it works fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I would still tend to use that method if you had a really big record with 20 or 30 fields or whatever. But sometimes it's just a simple list of maybe telephone numbers or names. And we want to keep the interface a lot cleaner. So I thought, how are we going to get the interface clean? So what the first attempt, and I'll just say here, this is something I've only been working on for the last 10 days, so it's still to some degree a product which is developing. It caught my eye when, if you've read the roadmap for Wappler 5, you'll see that they talk about composable components. In other words, the ability to custom design your own component within Wappler and then use that like a library action. And that's really what made me think, how can I look at alternatives to the multi-form, which I felt was a little bit cleaner, which potentially down the line I could introduce as a composable content. So the first action that I came up with was the table. And I looked at two different ways of doing it. First of all, we can just start typing, and you'll see all I've done is in this case is, as we've typed into that table, and that's actually a form embedded inside the table, we simply get a dirty marker. That shows us that form is now dirty and needs to be saved. And then the key will save it. The reason I put the dirty marker in is that if you just tab out, because I'm using an auto submit form in that case, the tab does not trigger an action. So we can see that we've overtyped some data there. It's dirty, it needs to be sent, and we just hit the enter key to do that. Or the other alternative way is that instead of putting a dirty marker in, we have a button magically appear, and then we click that updates the record, and it will hide the button again. You can see from these, because always coming from the same data source, as I update the data, you can see it's updating because it's updating in the different forms. Then I looked at, well, how do we do that across an entire form, edge to edge? And that becomes a little bit difficult because of the way Wappler structures the info. You can't actually wrap a row inside a form. It just won't let you do that. So I thought, well, instead of using a Bootstrap table as the basis, we look at a straightforward repeat. So we're a little bit more like the inbuilt multi-form feature that we have within Wappler. But in this case, again, no buttons. And this is what I'm aiming for, completely clean screen, no buttons as standard. So if update this, you'll see now that the save button appears, but when we click again, it disappears. So if we imagine this as a single entity here, it would simply be a buttonless screen. And I've also, just as a prompt, really, we could do there as a key press. For instance, if I hit control click, it pops up a create new record. Well, what would be a create new record action, and alt double click gives us the ability to be able to pop up a modal to delete. So what we effectively have is a completely editable form with no visible buttons until they are needed. And this again is a variation on this where I'll show you later, but a different technique in doing it. So how have I done that? It's actually really simple. Well, it's some fairly straightforward actions that we've all done before. And what I want to do is encourage at this point, there's lots of skills sitting around this meeting room here. So as I said, this is a new idea I've had. This is something that I'm still working on, still developing. And if anybody has any ideas on how we can go to enhance this, I'm really up for any suggestions or whatever to be able to improve the design of this. But to start with the very basic stuff, all we've really got in there is an embedded form inside the cell. Remember, this one was the one that had the dirty marker, as I called it, to tell you the record was dirty. And it is an auto submit form. So you see here, we can set the form to auto submit, and that's what causes it to submit when we just hit the enter key. So we don't need the button. What we have embedded in here is 3 fields. One is obviously the actual field for the forename in this case.
Ryan, we can only see your.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. My apology. Right, I'm going to go. I've got to switch share, don't I? My apologies for that.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks for shouting out on that one, John.
That's all right. I was seeing you clicking on things that weren't there.
Right. Help if you can actually see Wappler. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's it.
Okay. So what we need to do here is, I'll sort of wind back on myself. What we've actually got is fairly straightforward. It's just a form embedded inside that table. So we've got a straightforward form. These are all marked as inline forms, so we get these nice straight lines. There are no buttons displayed at this stage, and I'll show you how we do that in a moment. And in this particular table, there are 2 completely separate forms, one for the forename and one for the surname. And the reason, again, that I've done it that way, a lot of the stuff that I do is fairly high volume, and I'm conscious that the multi-update form that we have built into Wappler submits the entire form, including all of the repeating entries within it, etc. So we're actually pushing quite a lot of data around. And especially, again, if we've got the data synchronizing between different screens within a multi-tenanted situation, we really want to keep the amount of data that we're pushing to an absolute minimum. So in this case, we've got a field here. We've got this one is the forename that we're going to update. We've got another, which is the unique ID of the record. And then we've got a third one, which is a hidden field, and I've simply called it dirty. That's obviously within the repeat, so we can easily populate them from the values within that repeat. Nothing new there, I would hope. People could follow that. But what I've done is I've added a dynamic event for when that data is changed, and that dynamic event sets the, would probably better if I'd renamed these better, but that sets that dirty field to a value of 1. And I can tell you that there is a bug here in WAPL at the minute, which occasionally crops up, that you don't always see the value set. I'll just push it back in again. That's what we should be seeing there, but for some strange reason, it doesn't always display it. It's a bug report I need to get sorted out. But we're setting that value to 1. So that we've toggled, we're effectively using a hidden field as a toggle to be able to toggle the status of what is then, in this case, that dirty marker. That dirty marker is simply shown if that field value is 1. We'll also just put a little bit of styling onto this as well, just so it shows up in red. So when we click on this in a live environment and we amend that text, that data changed event triggers, that will then set that hidden field dirty to a value of 1. And because of that, you will see that dirty marker appear automatically. Now, the form itself simply runs a straightforward update forename server action, which is purely just update the forename based on the ID, which is the other hidden field in there. Everybody follow that? Any questions?
No, very clear.
Good. All right. I say it's not rocket science, this. It's really just me, I suppose, brainstorming a few ideas, really. In the second one, we do exactly the same thing. We have our, in this case, surname field. We have our ID field, and we have our dirty field. But in this case, instead of having that flag that we had before, what I've got is a button. And we've toggled that button visibility in exactly the same way as we did with the dirty marker. But in this case, we do not need to have the auto submit set because we have a submit button there instead. Then obviously the other thing we've got to do on both of them is on the success of the action, I'm refreshing the list, but also switching that dirty marker back to 0. So now we've gone through that. I'm just going to see if I can just switch back into Chrome. You all see Chrome there now?
No, we're still on WAPL.
Still on WAPL, yeah, all on one.
That's it.
Yep, right. So now if you remember, what's happened is that when this data is changed, that data change event is triggered. That data change event toggles that dirty hidden field to a 1, which then activates the dirty marker. We can see that in action there. And we say, because it's a auto submit, enter will do that. That set back to 0 again. We have exactly the same with this one, but in this case, we have the save button that produces that save effect as well. But the problem is that if you actually try to add a form in here, WAPL just simply doesn't allow you to do it. So I can't.
Switch us back.
Sorry, yeah, thank you. That back?
Yep.
Yep, right. So the problem is that if we want to actually do the entire row in one server action, in other words, save both of those, and we're doing that within a table, WAPL will actually not allow you to insert a form at this point. And I have actually tried to manually edit the form in, and it just doesn't work. So I had to sort of go back to the drawing board of, I'm quite happy with single field updates where we have a low data situation where it's maybe just telephone numbers or something like that. But if we had 3 or 4 fields, it becomes a bit arduous to write a single server action for each of those individual fields. So the answer to that one was simply to use a repeat instead. So instead of using a Bootstrap table, which is effectively you're repeating data, I'm just simply using a repeat. And I'm embedding the form within that repeat. So I've got exactly the same now. We've got the ID, the forename, the surname, and the dirty. And I've got exactly the same value changed actions there to be able to toggle that dirty hidden field, and that will then display the button. So that button obviously is exactly the same. This is a repeat of what we've done before in a different format, a rejig. If that dirty A field is set to 1, it will then pop up a button here. And I can do that. Yeah, if I just do that, you'll be able to see that button is there. And that will then allow us to save that entire form. So we're going to save multiple actions. So obviously in this case, we have what I've called update both. And that server action will update both the forename and surname fields. So if I go back to there, the last one is pretty much the same. But in this case, the problem with tables and unlimited, shall we say, columns is they sort of scale to the size of the screen that you've got. You have no control over it, particularly if you're dropping something inside a table. Basically, your fields will grow or shrink to the size of the table. So what I've done is I've extended this repeat. And in this case, all I've done is I've actually added some columns in and put each of the different elements within different columns. That's purely just so I have the ability to be able to change the column size. So if we had a telephone number and an address in there, obviously you'd want a small field for the telephone number, you'd want a long one for the address, and we can use the columns sizes to be able to do that. So if I was to change that to column 8, for instance, we'll see that that field has massively increased in size. So it gives us a more granular control over the size of those particular elements. Well, I did say to Mark, this would probably take about 30 minutes. So I'm probably not that far off that now. That's basically what I've come up with at this stage. I hope it's been useful. And does anybody have, first of all, any questions? But more to the point, can anybody make any suggestions of how perhaps this could be enhanced? Because what I'm hoping is as we come on to the composable elements, we can actually develop ourselves as developers bits of code like this that we can simply integrate into Wappler in the same way as you currently have the custom modules and custom formatters, so that people can be able to do that. So that if we work together as a team, as it were, and come up with these ideas, then we can really enhance the elements of Wappler and make it a lot more flexible than it is at the moment.
I think that's excellent, and I wouldn't visually and the UI, I don't think I'd change much at all. For me, I think what would be great is if this could ultimately become part of the form generator, so that you can generate your form for your displaying of data and just tick a box to say make it editable. Yeah. And then using the data manager, so it knows the field types. It knows, right, make this a checkbox, make this a text field, an input box or whatever. And that would suddenly make a day's work a few minutes, which is exactly what Wappler is good at.
Yeah. Well, what I worked on, John, was that if we go back to what I call the old method, where we tend to have, an edit icon, a delete icon, etc. We had to write the modals to go with it, etc. And that took time. In actual fact, it doesn't take any longer to be able to do the in-place editing code to be able to do that. But if we could ultimately have that built into the generator, so my big concern is that obviously when you're using the multi-generator that we have built in within Wappler, your form repeats, etc., you're pushing a lot of data around. And this, my idea was this is going to push an awful lot of load away from the server. And if you've got a really busy server, then that's a big issue. But also, I think it just looks better. I look at some of the pages I've done in the past in Wappler, and it's like button overload. There's buttons for this and buttons for that. And I'm just so much cleaner. I mean, I haven't tried it yet, but I know Wappler have this facility. So it's just a case of doing it. I did that just on a whim for, your control click to add a new one. I'll double click to delete, but we could actually map keys to that. So if you are developing a corporate site, you could simply map the same key to the add and delete functions right across your system. And basically you're going to have a virtually button-free environment, which is going to A, be cleaner, and B, allow you an awful lot more space on the screen. Because if you look at a lot of screens, certainly that I develop, a lot of the space is taken up with buttons. And be able to clear them out allows you to get a lot more data onto that real estate than you would be able to do otherwise.
Yeah, for mobile as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Far less data for mobile. Yeah, absolutely, Mark.
But what do you?
Sorry, go on, Mark.
Oh, thank you, John. Looking at the interface, it's very much more elegant without the buttons. Did you put any thought to changing, instead of having the dirty flag, changing the background color of the field to maybe like yellow?
Yeah, that could just as easily be done just by toggling. The significant thing is that that dirty field, as I call it, the hidden field, is the flag, because that's the only way of really being able to do this. Once you've got that flag, you could use that to toggle the style of the box totally if you wanted, as opposed to putting a dirty flag in, and that would work just as well. You could just turn the whole thing red. The only thing I didn't mention, just because some of you might have noticed that the input boxes are not standard. There is a little bit of styling added to that. All I've done is basically took the borders out of the forms themselves. So it's just straightforward redefine of the input. And what I've taken is I've just hidden the borders and I've set a fixed color background on it. But what we could very easily, Mark, as you said, be able to do a styling and use the class toggle based on the condition of I'll not go right through it, the condition of the dirty hidden input value, and be able to switch the class as based on the value of that dirty field. So we can have a green background to say everything's good, a red background to say, or a red border or a green border to show that that particular input is either dirty, i.e. unsaved, or clean, i.e. saved. So yes, it's good a way as doing as any, Mark. Yeah.
One other little feature that would be nice would be to have a little toggle, maybe at the top or somewhere, that just says that the form is editable at all, so that you can avoid people accidentally clicking on a field and it turning into an edit box when they might want to just, I don't know, highlight some text to copy to the clipboard or
yeah. Something. So effectively
turn it back
lock.
into a lock,
a table lock.
A view
table lock would be different, but you could certainly have something with toggle everything read only, which would probably be the way to do that. Be a little bit laborious because I think you probably have to code each individual element. But then again, we're talking about a row here, but we're only talking about 2 columns or 2 inputs. So we could set them as initially read only. And then we could have an option for a button to say unlock here. And that could then...
Yeah, or make it read only if the value of a variable is 1 or 0.
Absolutely. Yeah. You could actually do that, say using a variable, or you could even do it at row level if you wanted, and actually use another hidden field. But it's probably more likely you'd want to do it at table level rather than row level.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Everybody appears happy.
Absolutely, Brian. You did a fabulous job as always. We really appreciate it. Putting these things, going down this creative road like this, even while you're creating all those fantastic videos as well.
And I'm still awake.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in your comments, Ben, because you've done a fair bit of work using the multi-form stuff, haven't you, with your image galleries, etc. What do you think about an approach like this?
Well, in the past, I have done something similar. That was in the PHP days, and probably about a decade ago, where I had something similar, but rather than what you've done now, I changed the field to a form field. So initially it was just a normal text field. Clicking on it turned it into a form field, and but I still had to have a save button though at the end. So similar to this, but I still had a save button. It didn't automatically save the.
There is actually a downside to the automatic save. The auto submit feature, and I'll throw this out to anybody who might know the answer. But what I did notice was when the screen is first loaded, it actually automatically refreshes that field. So in this case, it will actually fire, because this is the only one that's set for auto submit. It will actually fire that form 5 times and effectively resave itself. And I haven't managed to find a way of stopping that. It's not I don't know whether it's a bug in Wappler that causes that or whether that's a reality. But actually, if you don't, what I'll do is I'll just share this screen, and I'll just show you in the developers console. Okay, can you see Chrome there?
Yes.
Yep. If I open the dev console and I refresh this, I'll just set this to network, refresh that, you'll see it actually fires that form submit action automatically, and I'm not convinced that should happen. It's obviously detecting the load as some sort of change and then auto submitting that field. And I don't know whether that is a sort of consequence we've got to live with, or whether that could be a bug in the auto submit routine within Wappler. I don't know whether any of you have come across something like that in the past.
Trouble is, if you've got 50 rows or 100, a big screen of records, then it's going to fire it 50 times or 100 times.
That's right. That's why I highlight and concern it, which is why I would be tempted to go with the
submit button,
save button. Yeah, because that
I like the save button, I must admit.
That way you don't have that error. Because that would say, bearing in mind that one of the reasons I'm looking at this is to reduce network traffic, then that would sort of defeats the object of doing that. So that's not an option at the moment I'm recommending. I just wanted to show you the technique, because this technique can be used to do a lot of different things as well.
And there's a little real nugget that you just showed in your CSS file of removing the margins or the padding from the input field. Because initially I was thinking, how's he got it that it looks exactly the same? Because I know Bootstrap immediately gives you bigger fields.
Yeah,
so,
you can. I mean, the way I've done it, I've restyled all inputs centrally, so this would actually reflect on everything because it's a quick and dirty fix. But yeah, you have complete control. Bear in mind, you can also, I'm just going to, hang on a moment, stop that share. Let's go back into Wappler again. What you've got to remember as well is that within Bootstrap itself, presume you can see Wappler now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you go into the advanced sections, you've also got huge amounts of control, and you can actually do global changes to your inputs right across your site by globally changing them within the Bootstrap definition itself. But I'm encroaching into Ben's world here because he's far better at things like that than me.
That's that sounds like a future Wappler meetup going into the design like that. I mean, being able to change a global design like that would be a huge time saver. Anybody up to putting a presentation together? 20 minutes, half hour?
Would you like me just, I mean, we're at, we're 37 minutes in. I'm happy to do a quick 10-minute spot. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm quite happy to show the basics of how to use the Bootstrap designer, if you want me to do that.
And unless anybody's got any other questions or anything else they'd like to discuss, I think that'd be fabulous.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right, you're on.
Quick hands, or how many have actually done the redefining Bootstrap in the past? Except Ben, because, yep, John, you have as well.
Well,
yeah, it's not something a lot of people, I think, have played with. So yeah, quick run through then. We're using a custom theme here. First of all, there's our button colors, which obviously link to the colors that you will see here in your drop down of your buttons. And we can redefine them in any way we want. So if I wanted to redefine the info, etc., we can actually just click on the color, pick a color, and from that point on now, every button that's been set to info will change color right across your site. So you can effectively like style your site right across on a simple click of a button.
One quick thing to drop in, you've got to be using Bootstrap local for this.
Yes, sorry, yeah, it's obviously no good with it, just CDN, yeah. My apologies, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can very quickly style all of your buttons globally right across your site. You can style the color of the text. So if I wanted to make this all be a horrible green text, then we can simply do that. And you see that on the screen there, that has immediately changed. And again, that would be global throughout your site. I wish I'd remembered what these settings were. We'll just have that back to black. Coloring of your links right across the site as well, and your background across the site. So you don't have to go into your design and change the color of your background within here. You can stay within the app structure and change that globally right across your website. Fonts is one that I use quite a lot because you pick up any Google font that you want. So if you want right across your site to use a particular font, then there we are, and that font will be adopted for headings. You can have a separate one for your text. And again, that's right across your site automatically. I'm going to have fun putting all of this back. And you have the choice for base fonts. You have sans serif and monospace fonts as well. You can change your font size globally. And then you've got your borders and rounding, etc. as well. Something I've seen people in the past ask about on the forum about validation icons. They want to turn them off. You have that ability here, single click, you can turn off all those ticks, etc. that you have within the forms and the validation as well. So that's your basics of your theme redefining, but you then can go very, very specific in the advanced variables, I suppose, where you can change colors. You've got, you know, even down to your transitions, etc. Your bonds, your link hover decorations, body colors. You know, it's a never-ending list. It goes on forever. Look at your border, your table widths, your table border colors. So you can restyle the look and feel of your entire website without having to write loads and loads of CSS that we would have traditionally done in the past and use the CSS class. We can actually just go and use the Bootstrap theme manager and redefine all of those elements within the swatch itself. So yeah, basically pretty well everything you can think of is in there. I like to just go in and, you know, I learned how to do this, or a bit of it. There's still a heck of a lot I don't understand about this. I just I fire up a temporary site, generally use the internal Node server because it's really easy to do. And I just play and just look at the effects of all of these different things. And what I find is some of the things that I wanted to do in the past, which were a bit complicated in CSS, or I just gave up on, I can literally do in a couple of clicks. But certainly for you, for the inputs, you know, you've actually got a lot of the settings here in terms of your shadows, etc. Set up there. So it might well be that you can actually do what you wanted to do without even writing. There was a couple of lines of CSS that I wrote. May well be that you could have done that within the Bootstrap setup. The reason I didn't was because I didn't want to affect the entire site. I just wanted to do it on that one page. But there you go. So that's,
and there's,
you know,
and there's the sample page.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course. That's a biggie. When I remember where on earth to put it.
It's just the eye.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. By just hitting the eye, what it'll do is that will show you what all of the styled things will look like on your website. So you can play about with it. You can change the settings. You can visualize it by pressing the eye. And when you're happy with the styling, then you commit it. And you've got various options to upload it, quickly generate it. And then you've got the full build. I've never quite worked out the difference between all of them because they all seem to work. They all seem to do what they want to do. I'm wondering whether perhaps some of them are linked with PHP specifically rather than Node. I'm not sure, but I've just found it. Once you change the settings, it works. And when you deploy to your remote, all of those settings are copied over. So I don't worry about them too much.
Right. Could I just step in a moment?
You can, because you are the acknowledged expert, Ben.
Well, just a little trick. Say the nav bar that's blue at the moment.
Yeah.
Say you wanted something similar for the background, but slightly lighter than the blue background. If you go to the theme manager, to background, or first of all, copy the primary color that's there at the top. Copy
this one, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Copy that, yes, and then paste it in for the background. Now you see that the background is the same color, but we want it slightly lighter. So what you can do is, because this is compiled with a SAS compiler. Once you save it, you can use lighten to make the background lighter. So type in lighten in front of the color there. Yes.
Yeah.
Type lighten and then bracket. Sorry. Yes, bracket. Then after the color, comma, I think, comma, and then say 0.1.
Close brackets.
And then close the bracket.
Click OK.
Yes. Didn't do it. There has to be a space after the. You've got a dot there after the.
Yeah, not 0.1. You said, did you?
Yeah, there has to be a space there after the comma. Yeah, there.
I'm just gonna. Now it's taking it out, Ben.
Oh my goodness.
It's because I hit the space. It opens the color picker.
Yeah.
Can you also not use variable names like primary instead of putting in the actual color value?
You can, definitely. If you type in there, for instance, var bracket and then double dash BS dash and then primary or secondary or whatever, and then close the bracket, it has the same effect. So, oh my goodness. No. Golly.
Learning SAS is on my to-do list.
Yeah, well, this should be okay for SAS. But just let me have a look at my own stuff.
Sure, as long as you, Ben, appreciate this. As I keep saying, you plug holes in my knowledge so often. I'm very happy to sit back and wait.
Look, what I'll do is I'll make a little video on this and show you how to do that. In fact, I think I've got one video already about 2 years ago where I put in the lighting. What would you call it? The lighten thing, you know, to lighten the background. I'll put another video. I'll have that done tomorrow. I'll put it on YouTube so that you can see how you can do that.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. Now, another thing is, if you go to styles to the right, instead of abstract, you go to styles.
Oh, you've lost. Where do you want me?
Where there's abstract at the moment. On the right hand
right,
side.
sorry, yeah, styles over here.
Styles.
I was looking for it in the Bootstrap panel there. Yeah.
Now just select something on the page.
Yeah.
Now, if you scroll down to the bottom of the styles panel, you'll see all of the variables that are available.
Yeah.
So the BS primary is mentioned there, so that should work.
So
but I've, which is nothing unusual for me, but doing things wrong, I mean.
Welcome to the club.
But you can see a lot of the variables that you can use in your project. The other thing with the styles panel, if you go back to the top in the styles panel, you can see how the navbar, for instance, the navbar collapse, how that is a flex item,
Yeah.
and it grows. The align items are center, although I don't see them in the center there. But
I've noticed that one before myself, Ben, that sometimes these nav bars don't seem to always lay out the way you would expect them to.
Yeah. My earphone is just conked out. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you, Ben.
I think Ben's headphone conked out.
Yeah, I don't know. We went a bit crackly for a while.
Yeah.
Can you still hear?
Oh, yeah, you're breaking up a bit, Ben, but you're there.
Okay, I've got just the one earphone at the moment. But that can be a great help as well. If you want to change a color, just click on the item that you want to change, and you can see exactly what styles are applied to that item.
Yeah.
And you can sort of copy the style rule, and then in your own CSS page, you can copy or you can paste that style rule and change it accordingly to override it. Yeah, it's very similar to what you have in the developer panel in the browser. I just can't hear a thing.
I think I spend more time in the developers console than I do anywhere else nowadays.
Yeah, but this saves you going into the developer panel.
Yeah. Oh, that's useful.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour here. I want to thank everybody for participating with us today, and Brian for your excellent development ideas. We appreciate that. And John, always for your calm support and counsel. If you'd like to invite any Wappler that's watching this to reach out to Mark 1 on the forum if there's something you'd like to share. Doesn't matter if you're new, doesn't matter if you're experienced. If it you think it'll help others, or something that something you figured out that you think will help others, please reach out. I want to thank everybody again. I wish everybody a safe and prosperous weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. Take good care and have a wonderful day.
Thanks very much, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Pleasure, Ben.